Hello guys, meet me again, Cindy Himawan, and today's our topic is about project implementation. So the project implementation phase actually can be used for any kind of project, whether the project is ERP software configuration or whether we develop our own project using coding. Okay, so that's why later on during this presentation I will explain in both sides, whether in the ERP side and also when you develop your own program. Okay, so let's start. Our topic today is about the implementation phase. So the implementation phase or the project phase is actually in any kind of project, then it will be consist of these four phase, right? The first one is planning, telling about why or the reason why we built the system, and then we do the analysis, we're doing the business process things, and then we do the design. Okay, and when we develop our own project, our own program, usually we will start with creating the UML design, and then we do the database design and also the user interface design. But when we use the ERP software that already uh, the ERP software is already ready-made, so we don't need to develop anymore. So when we use that kind of software, actually usually during the design we only do the design for the reporting for the form, or example we have additional process that not available in the ERP software that we're going to use, so then we will add our new form. Okay, but when all the forms, all the process we need already covered in the ERP software, then usually we don't do anything in the design phase. Usually what we do is only design the output, like the form for the sales order or the printing for the invoice, or maybe printing for the tax government. And then so today's topic, actually we're going to explain about the implementation phase, whereby the implementation phase will consist of these four things: the system construction, system testing, documentation, and migration. Okay, so the system implementation will be consist of these four things. The first one is construction. It's mean that we will develop the software itself, and then we do the testing to make sure that the software can run, and then we do the documentation, and then we do the migration. I will go for each things here later. Okay, so let's start from the construction. So basically the construction is will manage the programming things. Okay, whether in case you develop your own program, it means that you will uh, start to develop the program. Okay, so you start to do the coding, or maybe if we are doing the ERP, it means we are starting to do the configuration. Okay, uh, for time being, you already when you already finish your design. Okay, what you do is actually you will assign the programmer to make your design into programming. Okay, so basically what you do as a system analyst is already done, because your work is only until the design things, and then using that design the programmer will start to do a coding. Okay, but when we use the ERP software, that example the software is already ready made. Example, when you do the Odoo now, so you don't need to do any coding, right? So what you do is actually to do the configuration. It means that you will activate some function, you will activate the feature, and so on. So that's why actually during this phase you will assign a programmer if you want to build your own program, or you will assign the consultant to do the configuration. Okay, and then you will also make some programming standards, like example you define what is the programming name file, and what is the variable needed, the everything that related to the technical things. Usually the programming standards will be done by the senior programmer. So the senior programmer usually will already have the programming standards or following the company standards, and the programmer will following whatever standards that already defined. And then the second is to do the coordinating the activities. It's mean usually the project meeting will be held weekly, or if there is an urgent, usually it also will be done like daily project meeting. Okay, and then we also need to manage the schedule. It's mean the schedule that we already define in the planning step, where we already define how long the project will going on. Then we need to make sure that our schedule is same as what we planned before. And then the next is we're going to the step of testing. So after the program is done, or after the configuration is done, then we go to the testing phase. Okay, so the testing is actually will never be able to prove that there are no errors, because basically the software is created by a human, so it's possible that the software might always have an error. But the things is we need by doing the testing, actually we're trying to detect as many error as possible, so we can handle that error as fast as possible before the system launch, or even if possible, then we can make the if it's possible, then we can make our software is error free. Even though some saying that it's not possible to have a fault free software, yeah, but at least we can minimize the error, because when the error happen, then it will disturb the business process, so it also means that the company profit will be also reduced because of the business process disturbance. Okay, so the testing is actually consists of many stage of testing. Okay, the first one is what we call with the unit testing, whereby the unit testing is actually to test the each module or each activity. And usually the unit testing will be done by the programmer itself, or maybe by the consultant, but the scope of the unit testing will be a small function. Later on I will explain, I will give you example of what is the unit testing and what is the integration testing. Okay, so the unit testing is actually only testing the small activity, or testing the small feature of the application. Meanwhile, the integration testing uh, will combine many activities in the system. Okay, so because by doing the integration testing, we want to know about the interaction. We want to know that the process can flow from each process to another process properly. And then by doing the system testing, actually will be uh, the system testing is not on usually the integration testing still separable with this within the similar or a similar module or similar process. But by doing the system testing, usually we do the testing uh, with the external parties, example with the bank, with the delivery courier, and with the other external party. So the system testing is actually even more bigger than the integration testing. And then the acceptance testing is actually uh, usually the step is the same like integration testing or system testing, but the acceptance testing will be done by the user itself. Okay, so let's go first to the unit testing. Okay, so it's saying that unit testing will test a single unit or a class. Okay, when we do the programming, it means that the programmer will test the small class in the programming. But when we do the ERP software testing, then the class is actually refer to the small to the single activity. Okay, so the unit testing usually sorry, there are two type of unit testing. The common one is the black box testing. The black box testing is actually just to make sure that the unit system already meets the requirement that stated in the specification or stated in the business process requirement detail. Okay, so basically just need to check whether the requirement is already fulfilled or not. Okay, that's why I always say that you need to have a good business process documentation. You need to have a proper business process requirement detail, because that will be a basic for the programmer to do the unit testing. Okay, if the requirement is not clear, then usually the testing also will fail. Okay, and the second type is white box testing, whereby the testing will go through each code. Okay, I will not explain into the detail about the white box testing, because anyway this is will be done by the programmer and it's very technical, so I will not explain the detail about the white box testing. Just remember that usually when we are as a consultant, usually we only do the black box testing. Okay, and then the integration testing usually will be done by the system analyst, because the one who know the complete process is the system analyst, right? The programmer only know about the single activity, but so after the classes or after the single activity is already passed, then that uh, activity or that classes needs to be integrated, and then we do the testing. There are four types of integration testing. The first one is the user interface. Basically, this one is to check the flow of the user interface. So if you still remember, during the design phase, we do Windows navigation diagram or storyboard. Okay, so the user interface testing will test based on that Windows navigation diagram, or based on the storyboard. Basically, we just want to check whether the flow of the screen is the same as stated in the Windows navigation diagram or in the storyboard. Or we can do the use case testing, okay, whereby actually we will test the activity inside of the use case. So if you still remember, in the use case diagram, there is a sequence diagram, there is activity diagram. So the whole activity that stated in that use case will need to be tested. And then we also have an interaction testing, whereby actually the interaction will showing the the interaction testing will showing like example, we want to know the flow within the module cells. We want to know the flow within the module inventory. So basically the interaction will be more complex. uh, it can combine many use case or uh, if use case is only one, right? During the use case testing, we only test the activity inside of the use case testing, but for the interaction testing is usually will be consist of many use case. And then we also can have the system interface, whereby the system interface uh, can relate it to the external party. Example, in the bank and the courier, we are using the printer and so on. Okay, and then okay, so the system testing actually will usually will test of this one whether the requirement is already fulfilled, and then testing the usability. It's mean whether the software is easy to use or not. And then the security testing, it's mean that we want to see whether the application is secure enough or not. Is it example, um, usually the security test is to prove the regression. Okay, regression means that we want to prove that if example I put the wrong login ID, then the system should block me, right? But so we want to prove that when we do something wrong, the system also will react wrong. Okay, so usually we have two types of testing. The first one is the positive testing. It's mean that if I put the correct login, then I should be able to log in. And the other one is the regression testing. It's meant to show that if I put the wrong login, then I should also cannot be login. Okay, so so we want to prove that our system is really secure. And then we do the performance testing. And so the performance testing actually to see if example we have a lot of customer login, or we have a lot of customer doing the order, so what will be happen, whether our application will be down or our application still can handle the heavy loading or not. And then the documentation testing is actually only want to check whether uh, the requirement is already stated in the documentation or not. Okay. Okay, and then there's a user acceptance testing. Okay, basically the user acceptance testing, it can use the same testing like the integration or the system testing, but basically the user acceptance will be done by the user. Okay, so there are two types of acceptance testing. The first one is alpha testings. It's mean that the user will be in our project site, and the user will will test based on our script. Okay, so we give to the user the test script, and then the user will test based on that script. But for the beta testing, usually example uh, when you want to launch your application, and of course you cannot ask many users to come to our project site, right? So that's why, example, like when Windows launch their new system or their new office, usually they will give the user beta version, right? The beta version means that uh, we want to know the user experience, we want to know with the many user environment, okay, because we cannot invite many user to come to our project site. So that's why we launch our software, but with still with the beta version. Okay, so user can doing the testing, doing that beta version, and then the programmer or the programmer can know whether there is still error based on the user experience. Okay, and then so what we are going to do is later on I want you to create the test planning. Okay, so the test plan is actually to define. Okay, I just directly go to this. Okay, so the test plan is actually you need to define what kind of test that you need to do. Okay, so I want you to list down um at least for the unit testing and the integration testing only. Okay, so example in here I put the testing, the test name is create city. Okay, example, you need to input the city into the system. It's mean you need to make sure whether the application already can input the city into the system or not. So because the city is the single activity or single menu in the system, so we call that as a unit test. Okay, and we put the priority medium because even though example if the city is still wrong, then we can still doing the hard code or some or we can just go to the database and insert it. Okay, and it will not make the other process stuck, so that's why I put the priority is medium. And there is a no dependency, but you also can put example if you have the province first, it's mean that before you can create the city, then you need to create the province first. So the later on the dependency of the city will be master data province. Okay, let's go to the second example. uh, we define the test name is create customer. Okay, whereby the customer is also considered as a unit test because it's only single activity. And we put the priority high because if the customer cannot being registered, then the transaction also will not be happen. So that's why I put the priority is high here. And the dependency is the master data city here is need to be created first. So we cannot create the customer data without having the master data city. Okay, and then example again, we also can put the testing name is create SAS order as a unit test because it's only creating the order on until the input the order into the system, and that's it. So it's also still considered as a unit test. Okay, whereby we put the priority is high because if the SAS order cannot be created, then the whole transaction also cannot be following later on. So and then the SAS order also have the dependency of the test number 2, whereby the customer needs to create it first before we can do the SAS order. Okay, so later on you need to list down all the unit tests that you need to do first. Okay, and put the priority and put the dependency here. And then after all you can define your integration testing. Okay, so the integration testing here is actually we put example, I put the test name is order processing, whereby the order processing is actually will be consist of creating sales order, creating delivery, creating the invoice, and so on. Okay, so basically inside the order processing is consists of many activity that we already defined in the previous list. Okay, so again, so your task is to create the task plan, something like this. Okay, and then after that, after after we do the testing plan, then we need to do the testing script. Okay, but I just want you to okay, example. Okay, I already gave you the test script example here. Okay, the testing script will look like this. Okay, so whereby you will define example the test script number 10. Okay, and then we put the testing name is order processing, and then explain what is the details, and then explain what is the expected outcome. Like example, we want to make sure that the document can be created as well as the finance accounting journal created. And then you can define the business owner name, like this one is uh, stating the department, the functional area department. Example, you have sales, you have inventory, you have purchasing, and you have the finance department. This one is from the business side. Okay, you can just put your just your name, or but later on if we do the real project, then the name here will be our username. Okay, and the QA reviewer here will be state as the consultant or as the programmer name. Okay, example, if I responsible for the sales process, then I will put my name under the module sales. Okay, then later on we can define what is the overall test status after we do this test. Okay, so what we do first is actually we define this one. Okay, the header, and then we will define this table. Okay, so this table, this column from column number until column cases is actually need to define before the test is executed. Okay, so the later on the column actual result until column if failed will be done when we do the testing execution. Okay, so example in here we put inside the order processing, the first one, the first step is to create the master data product, whereby the master data product will be handled by the functional module inventory, and the menu is creating product. We put what is the menu in the application, and then you can state whether, if example the process needs to be done manually, then we need to put the manual operation. But if the process is done in the system, then we don't need to fill up the manual operation. Okay, and then we define what is the input data. Here we can put, so in order to create the master data product, what will be in what we need to input, then we example we put the product name, description, and so on. And what will be the expected result? So our expecting is the product is created, and the case is when we create the finished goods product. Okay, and then we will go to the next step until the whole step. Okay, so we example in here, example if we have like 10 step, then we will define everything the 10 step here first, and later on when we do the testing, then we will fulfill this column. Okay, so example, uh, we do the master data product. Okay, can it be done if so whether if we have the actual screenshot, then we put the done here, and then we will put the screenshot. So if you see here, actually there will be a two sheet. The first one is the sheet of test script, and then the second sheet is to store the screenshot here. Okay, so later on you will put the example in here. We already create the master data product. Okay, the screenshot is available, and the document number is 001 Ransel, and you need to state whether we have whether there will be a financial document or not. If not, then just put not available, and then who is test and when. Okay, and then what is the result. Okay, so if pass, then put it pass. If fail, let's say the master data cannot, let's say the product cannot be created, then we put in here fail, and then we will put the issue number. We will generate the issue number. So later on, the issue number here will be given to the programmer, or will be given to the consultant. We will saying that, you know, this step is cannot be fulfilled, so please check. Okay, and then don't forget also that we need to put the comment here, whether example like the system can it say that already saved, but example the number is not appear, or maybe we can save but the description is being shortened, okay, or something. Then we need to put the description of fail in here. Okay, so I want you later to create the test script only for the integration testing. Okay, so you don't need to create the, okay, so if we check here in the test plan, you will define the whole unit testing and the integration testing, but for the test script you only need to create for the integration testing only. Okay, I'll give you the detail of the Excel later, then you can using the template from my Excel. Okay, so after the test script, then we can go to the documentation, whereby the documentation is actually will be consists of system documentation and user documentation. Okay, so the system documentation is sometimes also being called with the technical documentation. Okay, whereby the technical will like handling like if we are build uh, our program, then it will consist of the code of the program code. Okay, so it will explain like how many class we have, how many variable we have, how many procedure, how many function, and everything that related to the program. But if we do the ERP configuration, it means that we will put the configuration. So why you need to activate this feature, why you need to tick this feature, uh, why you need to activate this, and so on and so on. Okay, so that will be the system documentation or technical documentation. Okay, and then the second one is about the user documentation, whereby you will explain the uh, like the user manual. Okay, so the user documentation is actually this like the step by step of doing this. So like the SOP, standard operating procedures, like the business process flow, and then after that you will explain the user manual here, the tutorials on how to use the system. Okay, so you will explain like uh, after so how to do the sales order, how to do the delivery, how to do the payment and so on and so on. Okay. Okay, and then we will go to the migration planning. Okay, so the migration planning is actually to to help the people in the company to move from the as-is system into the to-be system. Okay, there will be a two activity. It can be from the technical side, technical aspect, and will be from the organizational aspect. Okay, so the technical aspect, usually we call it as a conversion, and then the organizational aspect, usually we call it as a change management. Okay, so the migration is actually to help the system from move from the as is, doing the transition and into the to be. So let's start from the unfreezing first. So during the unfreezing phase, usually we're trying to make the user know about our system. That's why usually we will involve the user in our analysis and design phase. Okay, we will asking them to be involved in the meeting, so at least they are aware that we are going to develop a new system. Okay, so maybe this will be a bit hard because sometimes the user don't know how to use the new system, or sometimes the user might think that they don't need the new system. Okay, so that's why actually the during the unfreezing, actually our task as a system analyst or as a consultant actually trying to persuade them, trying to make their aware about the benefit of the new system, trying to make them understand what is the good things that they will get by using the new system. Okay, so during the unfreezing, then we need to know who is the key player here. We need to know who is the sponsor. So we need to know, because we need to have like a backing. Okay, so the one who can make sure that the user wants to listen to them. Okay, so that's what we call with the sponsor. And then we need to have the change agent. It's mean that we're trying to know who is able to make the user wants to use. Okay, we need to know uh, like the change agent is the one that trying to influence to the user, so the user wants to use the new system. And then we need to know also about the potential adapter. It means that we need to know who will use this system. Okay, because when we build a system, maybe not all the user will use it, but then we need to prioritize on who will get the impact of the new system. Okay, so that's what we call with the potential adapter. Okay, then the potential adapter itself can be uh, so the potential adapter is the one who will get the impact from the new system, right? So that potential adapter will be separate into three things, the three types. The first one is the one who ready to adopt, the one who already recognize the benefits and they are willingly to use the system, and usually it's only 20 to 30% of the user. And then we need to know who is the user that's still resistant. It's mean that the user is refused, they don't want to use the system, they don't want to accept the change, and even they fight. Okay, and then we need to know also about the reluctant adapters, that actually the reluctant adapters is the one that blow with the wind, it means that sometimes they accept, sometimes they don't. And so usually this amount of user is quite a lot. So that's why we need to know who is the reluctant adopters, and then we need to make the strategy, because usually if we cannot win these reluctant adapters, then the reluctant will go into will become a resistant adapters. But if we can win the reluctant adapters, then this reluctant can be a ready adapters. Okay. And so during the unfreezing also we will have the sponsor, okay, or the management will need to revise the policy. So that's why in the beginning I always tell that we need to know what is the business process. Okay, because by knowing the business process, we know what will change, then we can revise the policy, we can define the procedure, and we can, so the policy here will define what is the goals, what is the new process, and then we also can explain to the user what is the reward. So if you're following the new process, what is the reward that you can get, what is the benefit that you can get. Example, previously if you're not using the system, then you need to calculate manually, but now after you use the system, then you can easily calculate, so you don't need to have an overtime and so on and so on. Okay, so that is actually trying to explain to the user what is the benefit of using the new system. Okay, and then this is what we need to do. So we need to define the SOP, we need to define the measurement and rewards, we need to know whether how to say that the job is already considered a good job and what they will get. Okay, that's what we call with the measurement and rewards. And then we put the resource allocation. It's mean that we will make sure that all the resource needed will be fulfilled. Okay, example, if we need more people, then we need to hire a new people, or if we need a new machine, or if we need a new training skill, then we need to do that. And then it will go to the conversion. Okay, whereby the conversion is whereby the conversion will be including what the master data creation. Example, we need to upload our product, our packaging, the city, the postal code, and so on, the price. Okay, and then we need to prepare the external connection with the bank. We need to check whether the bank already whether our format file is already same with the bank requirement. We need to prepare our scanner, our RFID sensor if we have it, or in case you need the other hardware like the printer, the email connection. We need to prepare all these things. And the conversion, okay, the conversion can be done directly. It's mean from the old setting will directly change into the new setting, or we can do what we call with the parallel conversion. It's mean the when we do the direct conversion, it's mean the new system will directly replace the old one. But when we do the parallel conversion, it's mean that uh, the old system and the new system can be used side by side. So for time being, example, we define, okay, for the first 3 months we will use the old system and the new system together, and then later on we can compare whether the result is the same or not. Okay, And then the conversion also can be done by the pilot conversion. It's mean example, we want to launch the new system in Jakarta first, and then after it's settled down, then it will be goes to another city. Or we can put the phase conversion, and usually the phase conversion will be the pilot, if the pilot is actually differentiated by the location. If but for the phase conversion usually will be differentiate by the module. Example, okay, we goes by module sales first, we goes by the inventory module first, or maybe we goes by example, you develop for the pet, for the pet health. So it's mean example, we launch the product of pet clinic first, and then later on then it will follow by the pet accessories or product sales. Okay, so basically we split it based on the activity in the system. And simultaneous conversion, it's mean that uh, the simultaneous means that we can do the pilot and phase conversion together. Example, the Jakarta only use the SaaS module, Bandung only use the inventory module, or something like that. So basically we just differentiate between the location and the module. And then we also can do the conversion based on the module. Okay, whether we want to have the whole system or the modular conversion, it's the same things like the phase transition. Okay, and then we go to the move in the change management. It means that we will prepare the user how to use the system. Then we can do the classroom training. It's mean that we will conduct the training in the classroom offline with many user. If one-on-one training, it's mean that one user will be trained by one consultant or one trainer. And we also can use the CBT, computer based training. It's mean the training will be conduct online. Okay, so you need to check for your project, so how to do the training for the user. Okay, so whether you want to do the classroom one-on-one or doing the CBT training. Okay, and then in the phase of refreezing, then the goals is actually to institutionalize, means that uh, the system is already legal, and it will be launched, it will be used. Okay, and there are three activities that we need to do. Okay, in the system support will be on demand training. It's mean if there is some case that the user still not understand, then we can do the on demand training. We also can provide the online support, some things like we define the FAQ things. And also we can provide the help desk. It's mean the help desk will help the user, uh, will stand by if the user have any question or any difficulties when they do the new system. The help desk can be done by phone service, also can be done by the chatting. Okay, so later on you can define what type of help desk that you can use. And then there will be a system maintenance. So the system maintenance is usually will need to refine the system. Example, after the system being launched, and then the user find out there is still error, or maybe there is a feature that not suitable with the requirement, or maybe there is a changes in the business process, then we need to do the system maintenance. It means that we will doing the change whether in the programming side or whether in the configuration side. And then there will be a project assessment. It means that we need so in the beginning we already have the project system. Already have the system request, right, whereby we already define what is the business value, what is the business requirement, what is the benefit, and so on. Then by doing the project assessment, basically we want to know whether the benefit that we expected, the value that we expected, is it already covered or not, and if not, then what we need to do in the future projects. And we need to explain also what is the errors still happen, what is the changes that still required to do. Okay, so that is the topic about the project implementation. So if you still have any questions, so please let me know and we go to the discussion session. Thank you guys.